The observatory hung at the edge of Earth orbit like a silver sentinel, its thin metal frame glinting against the cold black of space. Beyond the reinforced glass, stars stretched endlessly, pinpricks of light in the silent void, each one a potential home to life for a warning of danger. Inside, Dr. Elena Marquez sat hunched over a console, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. The room hummed softly, punctuated only by the occasional click of a monitor or the low buzz of life support systems. Then the signal arrived. It was faint at first, nothing more than a ripple in the endless, cosmic noise but unmistakably artificial, a staccato pulse that refused to obey any known natural pattern. Elena froze, her pulse quickening as the console interpreted the garbled waves. "No, it can't be," she whispered. She adjusted the filters, leaning closer, eyes narrowing, as the static fractured into something startlingly clear. A sequence of repeating tones, irregular but deliberate, like a heartbeat struggling to speak. "Dr. Marquez," came a voice over the comm. It was Dr. Hiro Tanaka, the observatory's lead astrophysicist. "Are you seeing this, Elena's?" Fingers flew over the controls. The signal had a rhythm, a hidden structure buried beneath the interference. Symbols flickered across the screen, alien in every sense, sharp angles and flowing curves intertwined. For a moment, she felt as though the room itself had grown colder, the hum of machinery drowned out by the signal's invisible pull. Then, faintly, a phrase emerged, repeated over and over, fragmented and half lost in the static. "We underestimated." Elena's breath caught. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Underestimated? What? Who? Before anyone could answer, the transmission cut off, just like that vanished into the void. Silence filled the observatory, heavier than the vacuum outside. No one spoke for a long moment. Hiro broke the stillness, his voice tight with a mixture of awe and fear. "It's a message, I'm certain of it. But what were they trying to say?" The room buzzed with tension. The observatory, usually a place of methodical study and cautious discovery, felt suddenly small and fragile, as if the stars themselves were watching. Elena tapped at the console, trying to amplify the signal, to hear it again, but the cosmic static had swallowed it whole. Could it be a warning? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Or a distress call? Hiro shook his head. "If it's a warning, we may already be too late. If it's a distress call, then someone, somewhere, is in danger." Outside the observatory, space remained indifferent. Planets rotated silently, and distant stars blinked, oblivious to the fragile human lives orbiting a pale blue dot. Yet inside, the scientists felt the first tremor of something monumental. This was not random noise, not a cosmic accident. Something or someone was trying to reach them. Elena's hands hovered over the console. A chill ran down her spine as the thought struck her. A single mistake interpreting this signal could trigger consequences none of them could imagine. And if they misunderstood its meaning entirely? Holographic projections of the star map flickered, highlighting the source, a star system previously unremarkable, a dark corner of space humanity had barely charted. And yet, tonight, it seemed impossibly close, threatening, urgent. "This changes everything," Elena murmured. Her voice carried more than just astonishment. It carried the weight of unspoken responsibility. Every scientist in the room knew it. The universe had reached out to humanity for the first time. And for the first time, humanity would have to respond. But the pulse of that signal, the one phrase that echoed like a warning in their minds, lingered longer than any human thought could contain. "We underestimated." And somewhere, deep in the dark, the cosmos waited for the reply. The United Nations Space Command Chamber buzzed with controlled chaos. Holographic star maps floated in midair, each point of light a solar system, each line a trajectory humanity had barely begun to understand. The room smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air, but the tension was thicker than any physical scent. Delegates and military advisors leaned over glowing tables, their faces illuminated by the shifting constellations projected before them. "All units confirm receipt of the signal," barked General Ortega, his voice cutting through the murmurs. His eyes were cold steel behind rectangular glasses, scanning each officer as if daring them to admit fear. "Yes, sir," replied a junior analyst, fingers shaking over the holographic keyboard. "Source confirmed. A previously uncharted system in the Aureus sector. The signal, it's artificial, definitely alien." Ortega's jaw tightened. "Interpretation." The room fell silent. Then, Dr. Ren Li, the UN's lead xenolinguist, spoke, her voice hesitant but firm. "Initial analysis. It appears hostile. The message is fragmented, but patterns suggest an urgent warning aimed at potential intruders. The tone alarm threat, possibly a preemptive strike. We should assume aggression." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Faces hardened, and whispers of "prepare the fleet and launch a warning strike" began circulating. The room seemed to shrink as panic tightened its invisible grip. Alina Marquez's voice broke into the come from the observatory orbiting Earth. "Wait, don't act so quickly." The signal, Ortega cut her off. "We cannot wait. If this is a threat, hesitation costs lives." Holographic alerts blinked crimson. On screens, the system pulsed in warning. Unknown ships, potential weapons, signatures, energy anomalies. The human fleet already mobilized thousands of tons of steel and energy ready to intercept what might be nothing more than a misinterpreted distress call. Dr. Li's hands trembled as she tried to clarify. "It may not be hostile. There's a fragment, repeating a phrase, incomplete. We underestimated. It could be a warning, or enough." General Ortega snapped. "We respond with strength. Prepare the fleet. Stand by for departure." In orbit, Alina watched helplessly as ships left Earth like silver comets streaking across the black canvas. Each vessel left trails of light against the darkness, engines glowing like molten veins. Inside, pilots and officers murmured prayers or reassurances, but no one could shake the shadow of uncertainty. Back on Earth, media streams flooded public consciousness. Speculation ran wild. First contact with an alien civilization, imminent invasion, humanity's moment of reckoning. Crowds stared skyward, scanning the stars for signs of doom. Fear had become a living, breathing entity. Then, mid-flight, the second transmission arrived. This one was clearer, but heavily encrypted. Holographic text shimmered across the fleet command consoles, coordinates, and what looked unmistakably like a plea for help. But the encryption was complex, fragmented, almost mocking. It suggested urgency, but no one could be certain who or what was in danger. The fleet commander, Admiral Kessler, leaned over his chair, jaw tight. This could be a trap, or it could be a chance to avert disaster. But we have orders. As the fleet hurtled toward the alien system, shadows of doubt crept into every mind. A single misread could spark a war. A single hesitation could mean humanity's extinction or, worse, the destruction of another species reaching out for help. And yet, in the silent void between stars, the signal pulsed again, faintly, like a heartbeat echoing through the cosmos. We underestimated. Somewhere deep in the black, the universe waited for humanity to choose, strike first, or listen carefully. In that moment, every eye on board, every ship held the same question. Could a single mistake in understanding a signal become the spark that ignited humanity's greatest challenge and greatest triumph? The black of space stretched endlessly before the fleet, a canvas of infinite void pierced by distant stars. Thousands of human vessels cut through it like silver knives, their engines trailing incandescent streams of blue and white. On board, officers and pilots stared at the screens in tense silence, each one acutely aware that their journey was into the unknown. Admiral Kessler walked along the bridge of the flagship Aurora, the metal floor vibrating faintly under his boots. Holographic displays projected the alien system ahead, jagged asteroids, frozen planets, and faint energy signatures flickering in patterns that no human had seen before. Every pulse of alien light sparked both curiosity and dread. "Status report," Kessler demanded, his eyes sharp. Lieutenant Mara Chen's fingers flew across her console. "Sensors are detecting energy spikes near the system's outer rim. Unusual readings, could be remnants of technology, or defensive measures. No lifeforms detected yet, but the signal continues, repeating fragments of the phrase, 'We underestimated.'" Kessler's jaw tightened. "Underestimated what?" he muttered. The question went unanswered, lost in the hum of engines and the whisper of distant stars. Inside the Aurora, the tension was palpable. Crews whispered theories of hostile civilizations and traps set in the shadows. Every ship scanned for anomalies, every radar ping bouncing back uncertain echoes. The void had never felt so close, so alive, as if something unseen was watching humanity advance into the darkness. Then the first warning came. A drone launched ahead of the fleet, its sensors scanning the outer rim. On the bridge, the monitors flickered violently as the drone transmitted images, floating debris that glimmered like frozen shards of glass, energy fields that pulsed with unnatural rhythms, and shadows that seemed to shift independently of the debris. Lieutenant Ch's voice trembled. "Sir, the readings, they're moving. Not random. Something intelligence, something huge." Kessler's eyes narrowed. "Hold formation. Keep drones ahead. Do not engage unless necessary." Yet, even as he spoke, the fleet's massive hulls creaked and groaned under the strain of acceleration. Tiny sparks danced along conduits, a reminder that even human technology was fragile against the unknown. The alien signals persisted, a haunting rhythm that seemed almost alive. Deep in the observation deck, Alina Marquez's voice crackled over comms. "Admiral, you need to slow down. We're misreading the fragments. This isn't aggression. They're reaching out, trying to warn you." Kessler clenched his fists. "We have orders. We proceed with caution." Suddenly, a pulse of energy erupted from a jagged asteroid belt. The fleet rocked violently, alarm klaxons blared, red lights casting long shadows across tense faces. The drone camera feed showed a swirling vortex of light, almost like a tear. In space itself, radiating energy that warped the view. "Is this a trap?" muttered a pilot, gripping the controls. "No." Elena's voice was urgent, crackling over the comms. "It's a warning. They're trying to protect something, or someone. Don't misinterpret this." But human fear was already in motion. Ships maintained tight formation, shields raised, weapons charged. Every eye was trained on the cosmic anomaly. Every heartbeat, a countdown to possible disaster. And in the darkness between stars, the signal continued to pulse. We underestimated. Somewhere deep in that alien system, whatever had sent the signal waited. It did not move like a ship or a creature. It moved like awareness itself, watching, judging, and hoping humanity would understand before it was too late. The fleet pressed forward, a shining spear into the void. Each crew member felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. One misstep, one misread, and the journey meant to be a first contact could become humanity's last. And as the stars stretched ahead like endless needles of light, the question hung over them. Could courage and wisdom prevail over fear and assumption, or would one mistake in the signal cost everything? The fleet broke through the outer rim of the Aureus system, and what lay ahead stole the breath from every human aboard. Planets hung like jewels in the void, rings of ice and rock spinning slowly in the eerie glow of a distant orange star. But it wasn't the planets that caused fear, it was the structures from orbit. The alien installations appeared as colossal geometric formations, impossibly massive and unnervingly symmetrical. Towers and spires glimmered with energy that pulsed, like veins of molten light. They defied human comprehension, their surfaces shifting subtly, as if alive. The fleet's sensors could detect no conventional propulsion, No atmospheric activity, only a hum of power that resonated through the vacuum itself. Admiral Kessler's hands tightened on the railing of the bridge. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady but tight. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew over the console. "All readings. Anomalous energy fields are fluctuating, almost like a heartbeat. The structures are changing shape, and the signal it's stronger now." Repeating the fragment, "We underestimated, but now it's almost pleading." The word pleading hung in the room like smoke. Kessler's eyes narrowed, and even the most hardened officers shifted uneasily. They had trained for combat, for invasion scenarios, but this was something else. Something alive, something intelligent beyond comprehension. On board the Aurora, Elena Marquez's voice cut over the comm. "Admiral, wait. The signal isn't hostile. It's a warning. They're trying to tell you something about themselves, about us. Explain." Kessler barked. Elena's words were urgent, almost desperate. "Look at the structures. Their energy patterns aren't aggressive. They're defensive. Whoever built this knew something we don't. We could trigger a catastrophe if we approach recklessly." But the fleet advanced, human caution battling human fear. Ships spread into orbit, scanning, mapping, and probing the alien formations. And then the first strike of danger, or perhaps revelation, occurred. A pulse of light erupted from one of the spires, washing the fleet in iridescent brilliance. Shields flickered under the energy, and consoles flashed warnings. Yet the pulse did not target the fleet directly. Instead, it projected an image, a holographic figure, impossibly tall, composed of light and shadow, its face unreadable, yet filled with intent. The figure gestured toward a central spire, symbols identical to those in the original signal around it. And then the words appeared, projected across space itself. "We underestimated. Please, do not follow assumptions. We are not your enemy." A stunned silence fell over the human command. Fear, anticipation, and relief collided. For the first time, humanity faced the alien presence not as a threat, but as a mystery. A mystery that could be lethal if misunderstood. Admiral Kessler exhaled slowly. "All units, hold formation. No weapons fired. Attempt communication." Holographic consoles flared with translation algorithms, trying desperately to parse the alien message. Yet, even as humanity struggled to understand, the structures pulsed again, casting eerie shadows across the planets below. The lights shifted and flowed like living liquid, almost as if the world itself was breathing. And in that moment, every human aboard the fleet felt the same chilling truth. The Aureus system was alive, aware, and infinitely more intelligent than they had ever imagined. Every step forward carried the weight of potential disaster. A single misread, a single assumption, could ignite a war before either side had even spoken. And yet, the signal continued its desperate rhythm, echoing in every mind that could perceive it. We underestimated. Somewhere deep in those alien towers, an intelligence waited, holding its breath for humanity's choice. Confrontation or understanding. The choice would decide more than survival. It would decide whether humanity was ready to step into the galaxy as a force of wisdom, or as a spark of reckless destruction. The Aurora and its fleet drifted into orbit above the largest spire, its peak disappearing into a swirling corona of energy. Every human aboard felt the weight of centuries of exploration and fear pressing down on them. The silence of space was shattered only by the hum of engines and the occasional flicker of holographic readouts. Admiral Kessler stood rigid on the bridge, eyes locked on the glowing structure. "Open a secure channel," he commanded, voice taut. "We need to speak. We need to understand." Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across the console, attempting translation, decoding alien energy patterns, transmitting pulse modulation. The fleet held its collective breath, and then, the air or what passed for it in space shifted. Light coalesced into forms, tall and ethereal, composed of shifting colors and rippling shadows. They moved with deliberate grace, their presence filling the void without sound. The signal pulsed again. We underestimated, not your power, our caution. Do not strike. We need aid. The words hung in the void like fragile glass, glinting with urgency. No human voice could carry that weight. No cannon could pierce the significance. For the first time, every officer aboard every ship felt the raw vulnerability of intelligence, unlike their own. What are they? Whispered a young pilot, voice trembling. Elena Marquez, watching from the observation deck, leaned close to the holoscreen, eyes wide. They're alive, but not like us. They think differently, perceive time differently. The signal. It's their life, their warning encoded in a language we almost missed. The spire's energy pulsed in harmony with the signal, illuminating intricate carvings that shifted like liquid metal, patterns of light formed symbols that seemed both mathematical and emotional. A plea, a map, a record of history all at once. Kessler's face tightened. We proceed slowly. No assumptions, no aggression. Prepare a team for direct engagement safely outside the fleet. Minutes later, a small shuttle separated from the fleet, descending toward the spire. Inside, the air was tense, every heartbeat amplified against the silence of space. The shuttle's cameras revealed the surface of the spire, a strange crystalline terrain, luminous veins coursing across every surface. The energy wasn't just light, it was awareness, perception, and memory. Then, the first physical contact occurred. A figure extended a limb, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. The shuttle's sensors interpreted the motion as universal greeting. For an instant, humanity's fear was mirrored by awe. The being was both alien and incomprehensibly sentient, radiating intelligence and caution in equal measure. The signal pulsed faster. We underestimated the humans. We misread. Help, before it's too late. A wave of understanding rippled through the shuttle crew. They realized the earlier warnings. The fragmented signals were not threats, but desperate attempts to prevent disaster. The alien civilization had built defenses, not for attack, but to protect something vital, a core of energy deep within the system, a source of life and knowledge. If misjudged, humanity could have triggered destruction, not just of the spire, but of the very life it safeguarded. Kessler, watching Vaya come from the flagship, spoke softly, almost to himself. We almost made a mistake that could have ended everything, because we assumed hostility where none existed. The fleet waited, motionless, as human hands and alien consciousness began the delicate dance of first contact. Every pulse of light, every ripple in the crystalline spire, was a conversation, a shared understanding that transcended language. And in the silent void, one truth became terrifyingly clear. One misread signal could have sparked war, but one moment of restraint could build trust that spanned the galaxy. The message repeated again, softer now, almost like a sigh. We underestimated your caution. We hope for peace. For humanity, this was more than survival, it was a lesson. Fear had almost destroyed opportunity, but understanding could forge a path into the stars, like never before. The shuttle hovered above the crystalline surface, its lights reflecting off the alien spire like shards of frozen fire. Inside, the crew could feel the pulse of the structure, not mechanical, not organic, but something in between. Every shimmer of light, every vibration through the hull, carried information, warnings, and a faint, almost human-like anxiety. Elena Marquez leaned closer to the interface console, tracing patterns of flowing energy with trembling fingers. They're not just intelligent, they're sentient on a scale we've never encountered, she whispered. This isn't a civilization, it's a consciousness, spread across the entire system. They are the system. A holographic ripple shimmered above the spire, coalescing into the familiar ethereal form of the alien figure. Its shifting limbs pointed toward the deepest chamber of the spire. A new signal pulsed, urgent and fragmented. We underestimated the reach of your curiosity. Do not touch. Core. Hazard. The crew exchanged glances. Hazard. The word alone made every stomach tighten. One wrong move, one misread pulse, and whatever lay at the heart of this structure could be catastrophic. Yet the alien consciousness seemed to plead not with aggression, but with desperate hope. Kessler's voice cut through the coms from the flagship. Proceed with extreme caution. Analyze everything before action. We don't get a second chance. As the shuttle descended, the crystalline terrain below seemed to ripple like water, responding to their presence. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, catching light in impossible angles. Then came the first revelation. Deep within the central spire, a core of blinding energy rotated slowly, suspended in a lattice of glowing filaments. It pulsed with life, sending shockwaves of color and light across the structure. Jen's voice trembled. That's the source of the signal. It's alive, and it's fragile. Touch it wrong, and the entire system could collapse. The alien form shimmered beside the core, its presence radiating both warning and guidance. The message became clearer with each pulse. We underestimated the human's capacity for restraint. We feared destruction. Yet hope remains. Elena's breath caught. They didn't misjudge us as invaders. They misjudged our response to danger. They thought we'd rush in and destroy what we didn't understand. The crew realized the enormity of the mistake that had nearly been made. One misinterpreted signal could have triggered war or obliterated an entire intelligence. Humanity's curiosity, tempered by caution, had kept them alive, and it had preserved a species unlike any other. Kessler's voice was steady now, but laced with awe. This is bigger than anything we've imagined. Not just first contact, but a mirror. They showed us our own instincts, and we passed the test. The alien consciousness pulsed again, sending streams of patterns and symbols across the shuttle's interface. The meaning slowly crystallized. The system had been abandoned by its original creators centuries ago, left to maintain itself. But the intelligence inside had underestimated the resilience, ingenuity, and caution of other species. Humanity's arrival had proven them capable not of destruction, but of understanding. The crew of the shuttle stared in silence at the core. It was more than life. It was history, knowledge, and caution embodied. Every shimmer of its energy contained stories of civilizations past, lessons etched in light and time. And then the alien form reached out, connecting with the shuttle through a ripple of pure energy. A voice not spoken, but felt echoed inside every mind aboard. We underestimated you, but now, together, we may endure. The revelation settled over the humans like a cold wave of awe. They had been tested and found worthy. And in the silence of the Aureus system, one lesson resonated louder than any weapon or signal. Sometimes the greatest danger is not in what you see, but in what you assume. The choice to approach with caution had not just saved lives, it had opened the door to the galaxy's most profound mysteries. The Aureus system hung in silent anticipation as the fleet orbited the crystalline spire. Light cascaded across every hull, reflecting off alien towers that pulsed in rhythm with the core deep within. Every human aboard felt it, the weight of choice, of knowledge, and of consequences that reached beyond their comprehension. Admiral Kessler stood at the bridge, eyes locked on the central spire. "We've seen what lies at the heart of this system," he said, voice steady but heavy. "But now comes the real test. What do we do with it?" Elena Marquez stepped forward, pointing to the streaming holographic readout. "We have knowledge centuries ahead of what any human civilization has achieved. The core's energy, the intelligence encoded in these structures. It's a gift, yes, but it's dangerous. If we take it recklessly, if we try to harness it as a weapon, we could destroy not just ourselves, but countless others in the galaxy." Chen's fingers hovered over the controls, his expression pale. We've already misinterpreted one signal. Do we really think we can control something this fast? Across the fleet, tension crackled like static. Every officer, every crew member, felt the invisible thread connecting them to the alien consciousness, same thread that had pulsed warnings, that had pleaded for understanding. They weren't just observers. They were participants in a decision that could alter the balance of the galaxy. A pulse of light erupted from the core, brighter than anything human eyes had seen. The energy flowed outward, wrapping around the fleet like fingers of living crystal. And then the alien message struck in every mind simultaneously. We underestimated your restraint. The choice is yours. Preserve or exploit. Kessler inhaled deeply. Preserve, he said aloud, almost instinctively. We don't know the limits of this intelligence. We don't know the cost of interference. We preserve it. We learn, we document, and we leave it intact. Alina nodded, relief mixed with lingering fear. It's not just caution, it's survival. We've already seen what happens when assumptions drive action. If we take this energy without understanding, it could be the end. Even as the decision solidified, subtle signs of alien approval shimmered across the spire. Pulses of light flowed outward, entwining with the fleet, almost as if the intelligence itself was exhaling in relief. But not all humans shared the same restraint. A few ships, farther from the core, hesitated, tempted by the potential of power. The signal reached them to let yet. The ripple of energy from the core warned them nonetheless. Systems overloaded, shields flickered, and one rogue vessel was forced to retreat, battered, but alive. Humanity's restraint was being tested, even among themselves. Chen muttered under his breath, power like this, it doesn't forgive mistakes, even our own people. Admiral Kessler's gaze hardened. Then we lead by example. No ship advances without coordination. No one touches the core. We are guardians, not conquerors. The alien consciousness pulsed once more, a final acknowledgement. You have chosen wisely. We underestimated your wisdom. May it endure. In that instant, every human aboard felt the vastness of responsibility settle upon them. They had been offered a glimpse of ultimate knowledge, ultimate power, and they had chosen caution. A lesson etched not in fear, but in trust. And as the fleet prepared to depart the Aureus system, leaving the crystalline spire intact, the visual spectacle of light, shadow, and energy pulsed behind them, living monument to restraint, understanding, and the fragile brilliance of wisdom. One choice had averted catastrophe, one choice had earned trust, and one choice reminded humanity that sometimes the greatest strength was not in conquering, but in knowing when to step back. The galaxy waited, beyond the Aureus system, and now humanity had passed its first test. The Aureus system receded behind the fleet, a shimmer of crystalline towers and pulsing energy fading into the black canvas of space. Yet the memory of what they had witnessed lingered in every mind aboard the Aurora and its accompanying ships, a vivid imprint of caution, intelligence, and restraint. Admiral Kessler stood on the bridge, the endless stars reflected in his eyes. We were tested, he said, voice low but firm, and we passed. Not with weapons, not with aggression, but with restraint. Humanity has proven itself capable of understanding, even when power is within reach. Alina Marquez watched the distant spires shrink into the void, her mind replaying the pulses of energy. The alien form, the living consciousness that had whispered warnings into their minds. We almost destroyed it, she murmured. Almost destroyed. Knowledge, life, history, and yet, we held back. We didn't let Feyre curiosity drive us to ruin. Even the younger crew members, still pale from the awe of first contact, felt the weight of what had occurred. The core of the spire had been more than a repository of alien intelligence. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's potential, its flaws, and its virtues. One mistake in interpreting a signal could have sparked war, yet one measured choice had earned trust and understanding. A ripple of light pulsed across the fleet, almost imperceptible, as if the alien consciousness was sending a final farewell. It wasn't just gratitude, it was recognition. Humanity had passed the ultimate test of restraint. Chen broke the silence, voice tinged with awe. We didn't just survive, we improved ourselves. The galaxy doesn't just see humans as impulsive or destructive anymore. They see potential because we proved we could choose wisdom over impulse. The fleet moved forward, stars stretching into streaks of light through the faster-than-light engines, carrying humanity toward unknown systems. But the memory of Aureus, the shimmering towers, the pulsing core, the consciousness that had almost been lost, remained a compass in every mind. It was a lesson etched into the species itself. Power without understanding was dangerous. Restraint was strength. From the observation deck, Alina reflected on the broader picture. The galaxy was vast, filled with civilizations both ancient and unknowable. Many would misjudge humans as impulsive, as violent, but those who truly observed would see what had just unfolded. One species, capable of curiosity, courage, and restraint, could rise to meet challenges others could not. Humanity's place in the stars wasn't just survival, it was responsibility. Kessler's voice crackled over the comms again. Aureus is behind us. Ahead lies the unknown. And now, we carry its lesson with us. One mistake in a signal almost cost everything, but one choice, guided by caution and understanding, preserved life and intelligence. Remember that. Humanity will not forget. A sudden flare of light erupted on the view screen, the distant spire reflecting the last pulses of its energy into the void. The fleet watched in reverent silence as the colors intertwined, a cosmic reminder that the galaxy was alive with intelligence, waiting for those willing to learn rather than dominate. In that moment, the first real dawn of humanity's reputation in the galaxy had arrived, not as conquerors, not as aggressors, but as careful, intelligent, and resilient stewards. The humans who had almost made a fatal error had transformed it into a triumph, and as the fleet accelerated into uncharted space, the message was clear. Power, knowledge, and survival were never guaranteed, but intelligence, tempered by restraint, courage, guided by caution, and curiosity, balanced with respect, these were the true hallmarks of humanity. The stars stretched ahead, infinite and waiting. Humanity had responded, humanity had survived, and humanity had grown. The galaxy would remember